From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed.
Why relate to his chip?
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn the flesh and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew.
And this is, we're now, I see from something I got, we're at 10 years of podcasting. And as that technical fuck up at the beginning of the show, you know, it's like, we're still the same show. Apparently when I was using because this is my winter model building area, apparently when I set a sprue over there, it bumped the the outgoing sound for the iPad all the way up. That's why it was so damn loud when we started. And then I looked over, it's like, yeah, it's jammed all the way to the top. That shouldn't be that way. So 10 years of continuing excellence. Continuing podcast excellence.
Us and Marin. We started this before Marin did.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, he just had his 10-year, or had his 1,000th episode and 10-year thing. So
Yeah, it's interesting how that's I followed his because what was he on? He was on that terrible satellite radio with that
Air America.
That loony leftist. Like you just tune into that to be like, what are the crazies talking about? And yeah, he went from that to having this bitter podcast about how everything.
Well, yeah, while they were shutting that all down, he recorded like the early episodes of WTF in the Air America studios.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was always fun too. It's like, oh, life sucks for everyone.
Yeah, I started this podcast just because the One Upocalypse happened. That's when OneUp.com like basically fired all the people I liked.
Oh, okay.
And like basically all their podcasts were then gone. It's like, I should start a podcast.
Yeah, I was interested in it because that's when I was laid off all the time, the first time, and just didn't have anything to do. It's like, let's try to find some equipment. Boy, our early shows were terrible. I mean, not that it's like perfect now. Wow, you go back to that episode 1, it sounded like we were yelling through a bullhorn or recording in a cave. So no, I had no idea what I was doing.
Well, I was recording with the fucking shotgun microphone. And
yeah.
using I had an outboard sound card to have XLR inputs. You know, and that's and that shotgun microphone will like pick up a heartbeat, so it's like I had it pointed at my mouth, but also just pick up everything else that heaves along its way. Yeah. And I also had mounted on a tripod, pointing down at me to try to get and I thought like, well, if it's pointed away from the heating duct, it might not pick it up, but I still pick it up. And we had weird issues because that was back when we recorded on both ends and synced them up, and I had because you gave me your old Mac, and tried my best to use that fucking thing.
Yeah, it was pretty dated.
Well, no, it was just that probably even still now, GarageBand is terrible for podcasts.
Yeah,
to record long form podcasts. And I remember I had some fuck up where like it was like deleting like every 30 seconds it would just like delete like a frame of audio, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
And so like the both sides, they wouldn't sync up because like mine got clipped out like minutes of audio. So I had to go through and physically chop it up and spread it out so that it would sync up, which we don't do that much work anymore. Why would fuck it, we're done. Because yeah, recording on that back, that was also the only time we lost an episode because we lost that orthocarbon episode.
Yeah.
But and then you gave me your old snowball because you got the Heil mic and everything.
Yeah, everything went off board here. We got an external sound card that can actually receive at two ends, which is like, why couldn't the computer do it? But whatever. And then we got the Edirol, which is now Roland, which is now twice as expensive as when I bought this, but whatever. And I've been through various soundboards, but now I'm done. Like, I'm not spending any more money on recording equipment. I know it works, and this is how it works. And because you know, Mark, he used to come on the show. He works weird shift now and does all kinds of school. So, but yeah, he came over here and he's an actual sound engineer. He's like, "What are you doing, Murph?" It's like, I don't know, just work. And it's like, you're doing 10 times harder than it needs to be. It's like, yeah, but everyone loves it. So.
I eventually got this Yeti mic because I had a problem with I don't know what it is, that old snowball just wouldn't it doesn't want to recognize it, or at least the Google Hangouts doesn't want to recognize it if you just plug it in, but it's fine with the Yeti.
Yeah,
so that's no problem. And the Yeti just sounds way better.
Yeah, they're both made by Blue. It's just one's newer. And
yeah, I mean, yeah, that Blue micro or the snowball is like 10 years old. So
yeah, that was the first mic. I figured out.
Well, so. Yeah, they're probably the best sound for money and for podcasts. Blue microphones. The only thing that's hard to do is that usually you can only just plug one USB microphone into a computer. That's why me and Andrew are just sharing one. There is a way around to have you can split a USB mic, but I haven't bothered to spend 8 hours of a day to figure that out. To small gains.
Well, I mean, I had all kinds of plans to. I mean, I have sound drops, all kinds of stuff, and it's like we don't bother anymore because, like, why? It almost became effort. It wasn't seamlessly integrated, so yeah, just.
It's not like if we implement this, like now everyone's gonna listen. We're gonna be the secret hit podcast of the year.
Yeah. Well, the thing with podcasting in the last 10 years is the quality, the bar has been raised like so high. It's like, oh, okay, now we're, you know, because some people actually make a living at it. Even though, like I said earlier this year, it's like, yeah, a bunch of people are moving behind a paywall now, or they're only putting out the basic stuff, and then you got to Patreon it to get full access. And it's like, yeah, because no one's making any money. There's only so much of that Fleshlight and Adam and Eve money to go.
Get your Lisa or Casper mattress.
Yeah.
And use stamps.com. Or what is it? Yeah, is it stamps.com?
I think it is.
Stamps.com. Yeah.
Use promo code. Fuck.
Promo code GREED.
Oh. Then you talk about Adam and Eve. I thought about where it was like Adam and Steve. We got stuff to shove up your butt. Like that's just the whole website.
Just all butt stuff.
Like, it was just
the poop juice.
It just should be super casual. It's like, we just have stuff to shove up your butt. That's all it is.
A crayon.
A box of crayons tied together with a rubber band. Like, I mean, it's just shit like that.
What would be the
Big Rubber Fists, brought to you by Doug Stanhope.
Brought to you by Loose Bowel Movements.
What would be the moral limits to advertising for an online store? Like, what if they had like an all Nazi paraphernalia store? Like, we like talking about history, and we
we enjoy authenticity.
So go over to Harry's Heil Market for all your neo-Nazi needs.
You take it further. Like, don't you like rooting for the underdog? How about the ultimate underdog?
How about the Uber dog?
Get your free swastika banners to get up in your front yard so the neighbors will know to support our podcast.
Celebrate your heritage.
Just in time for Jew Madness. I mean, March Madness. No, there is
for German heritage with a swastika flag.
I was watching a playback of a tabletop game for strategy purposes in my free time the other day, and this guy like totally figured out a rule, and he was like, he meant to say "oh geez," but instead it came out "oh Jew." I mean, and then he's like "oh geez," and he like tried to cover it up. I'm like, someone's a secret Nazi. Like, I don't know why else that would pop out. I don't think anybody's ever confused that term.
Tee hee, I have hate in my heart.
Oh, ethnic cleansing. I mean, oh. Well, who's the video game guy? Like the biggest guy on YouTube?
PewDiePie.
Doesn't he screw up and he said the N-word like several times?
Oh yeah, he's.
And then he's like, "Oh no, that's a curse in my country." It's like, no, you just said the N-word in front of 70 million people. No, it's just, okay. Let him go. Let him have it.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean,
don't quote me on that. It was something like that.
I know why that guy's popular. It's because 12-year-olds have open access to everything, and they just click on everything they see.
Well, there's that, and he's just, and YouTube's that kind of like, you're popular because you're popular.
Yeah, who's the guy who does who's the guy who went to the suicide forest in Japan?
Oh, Paul, or is it Paul Logan or Logan Paul? I can't remember.
I think it was
Something
Logan
like
Paul,
that.
yeah.
Like he's like one of the biggest guys, and I was like, oh, what's this controversy about? And I went to his YouTube channel and watched some things, and I was like, who's watching this? I mean, good on you if you're making money, but it's kind of like the Kim Kardashian shows or stuff. It's like, why is this popular? A
lot of like those really popular YouTube shows. It's about a lot of high energy and like excitement. But we're old, so when we see that, it's like, this is just a facade. It's like, show me when the camera turns off and you have to eat an entire bag of Cheetos and vomit it up.
Show me that.
Show me the real you, or where you're just like counting your money. It's like, oh, how can I fuck over my audience today and make it seem like it's genuine? Like, no, this is for your sake.
Yeah, I never. I understand that I'm old, and a lot of this. Sometimes it's like, but sometimes I look too deep, and because I'll hear about something, and I'll be like, oh, this is the newest craze, and I'll go look it up just to try to understand it, and it's like, wait, is there some coded language here that I don't speak anymore? Is there some depth to this I'm not getting? Sometimes I go way too far, like, what does this mean? And really the answer is, oh, it's just stupid. There's nothing deep here. There's no secret message. It's just dumb. But I know I'm getting old because of what happened at work on Thursday. I was getting off the bus to go into the plant, and I took 2 steps off, and then I felt my right leg in the calf muscle, something popped, like I physically felt it. And it was like, oh, my fucking foot won't move right now. Like, what is this? And I just felt this burning pain. I actually looked down to see, like, did I get stabbed in the leg? Like, it hurt that bad. And I couldn't hardly walk, like, the whole day. Like, thank God I drive a forklift, or I would have had to bitch out for the day and go home. And when I got home, I put a bunch of ice on it. I was like, well, I'll probably have to go to the doctor. I get up Friday, it's virtually gone. And today I'm pretty much walking normally. I don't know what that was, but that's some old person's thing, like, because there was no reason for that to happen. I wasn't leaping off the bus, or I was just walking normally, and all of a sudden I hear pop, and I feel like I've been stabbed with an ice pick in my lower legs. What is that?
I had something similar like that, but that was like when I was younger, where just the ligaments around in my feet are tense.
Yeah.
And if I move it right, it's almost like you're just taking the ligament like it's a rubber band and just bing.
Oh, okay, maybe.
And like there was one day, like I got up and it felt like my ankle was broken.
Okay.
I couldn't walk on it, and like we went to the doctor. I got like one of those boots. Woke up the next day, everything was fine. So it was just like, and like that thing still kind of happens, and it's just like I know how to do like sort of physical therapy so that it's normal. It's like it's just things get tense and weird down there, and you have to like read it. Well, at least that's how it was for me. I don't know what it was for you. You was maybe it's just old.
I've never had that happen before. I don't know. It was just weird because it was sudden agony. Like, it hurt so bad, like I was sweating. I went and sat down on the bench for a minute, and I was like, shit, I can't go to work. I probably can't drive home. This was my right leg. And then it, like, receded. Like, that just receded almost instantly, like, within, like, a minute. Because then people were stopping, like, are you okay? You don't look good. I was like, yeah, just go on. Just we'll see what happens. You should go to medical. Okay, maybe. Let me get to the walking phase first. But then it kind of receded enough to where I could jump on my forklift and drive around, and it didn't kill me to go from the brake to the gas. But when I was walking out of there, people were staring at me like, what happened? I said, I don't know. Go home and ice this, and if I don't like what I see, and because then a lot of people were telling me like, well, that happened when you got off the bus. Like, that happened at work. You need to go report that. You need to. And I was like, dude, come on. What are they freaking people have their hands chopped off and they don't settle with them. You think they're gonna rush me a check? Because everyone's in that mode, just like, oh, you gotta go and do. No, I don't.
Get your lottery any way you can.
Yeah, just get them before they get you. It's like, no. But like I said, now today I'm fine. Just a touch sore. That's it. I don't know what that was, but it scared the shit out of me. Because when you're walking and you feel something give, and all of a sudden you can't articulate your foot anymore, but the pain is in your calf, it's like, oh man, something broke. Something's not right.
There went my ACL, MCL, or whatever health thing.
Yeah.
Although I heard by somebody, like, when that stuff tears, it doesn't hurt. Like, your ACL and MCL doesn't have, like, pain receptors or something. You just, like, your leg can't move.
Yeah, it's just function. Yeah, I don't like that when stuff doesn't articulate and there's no pain. Because I've had that in my hand before. It's like my hand just quit articulating, but I'm not in pain. It's like, what's going on? And it just kind of reboots. Like, oh, okay. Don't know what this is. Because you don't have a status display, shot clock in the corner of your eye. That would be helpful. If you could just
malfunction, please reset.
No one would be fat. If I just had a calorie shot clock in the corner of my eye, it'd be like, okay, 2,000 calories, I'm done. I don't need to eat. But no, it just doesn't work that way. It's all because it's gooey, organic.
No.
I'd just stop looking in that corner of my eye after a while. I was like, I don't want to know.
I would just do the same thing I do with my personal finances, bargain myself into making another bad decision. It's like, 2,000 calories.
Well, at least I don't do drugs. 2 Whoppers, here we go.
Yeah, I'm not doing heroin. Yes, can you deep fry that Stromboli for me?
And then,
See, that's one thing. Sometimes the Senate Finance Committee annoys me. That's what I call my wife when I want to spend money, because I have to make a PowerPoint presentation. But then sometimes I'm glad I have that in my life, because I realize, I'd be so fucking out of control. Like when I talk to guys at work that I bought this and that this weekend. I was like, dude, that's like $7,000. Yeah, the bank's empty. It's like, okay. You realize it's a contract year, right? Okay. But yeah, so sometimes it's like a pain in the ass to have to put on a suit and tie and make that justification. But sometimes I see at the end of the day, it's like, oh yeah, I'm because when something explodes here and it's like, well, that's $3,000 to replace, and I look at my wife and she's like, yeah, okay, yeah, go ahead and do that. Not I'm gonna have to finance an AC unit at 29% interest for 6 years because I don't have any money in the bank. So, because I have a boat or the $60,000 pickup truck that everyone needs, I don't have any of that shit. So,
yeah, there's a guy at work rationalizing him buying a brand new fucking truck this week, and I kind of just went, really? That's because he was talking about how expensive the used truck was that he was looking at, and it wasn't that much more for a brand new, fully loaded truck. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Only $10,000 difference. It's like, are you just looking at this in some long aggregate? $10,000 more dollars. You're not like a business. It's like, well, you got to calculate in depreciation. No, you don't.
oh, this truck will just make me money.
Yeah.
I mean, I get his point. It sucks paying that much money for something that's like, oh, this is like 8 years old that has like this many thousand miles on it. Like, I want something brand new. It's like, well, motherfucker, everybody does. But at the same time, like, you kind of got to go with what you can afford. Or what at least makes sense for you. So, I mean, but he doesn't have, like, he's an older guy. He doesn't really have, like, a lot of stuff besides maybe a house.
Oh, yeah,
so.
cool. Fuck it. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, he can...
He'll be dead in 5 years anyways.
Well, I hope not. He's only, like, 50. But at the same time, yeah.
Oh, it'll be a sad death.
Sad early death and just a mistake to pay off that.
Oh, you
truck.
left me the truck. I only have $55,000
well, I
left.
don't know if it'll be good in 5 years or not. It's a fully loaded Dodge truck. It'll probably fucking crap out in about 4 years.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe 7.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
whenever the retail warranty is, that's when it'll die.
Oh, I was gonna
Well,
say.
you can go 7 year, or no, you can go 8 years now on a vehicle loan.
Yeah,
which I-
because
Insane.
that's
Like,
responsible.
What? What are you talking about? That's,
Get your lifetime loan for your new car.
There's people.
that's how they're selling this shit.
Well, there's people who've gotten 10-year or 12-year loans for that shit too.
I know. Like, I always ask the guys at work that have the, like, because we're near the Great Lakes, which I've seen once. I'm living here 20 years. I've seen them once. There's a lot of guys at work that are really into boats, and you can really get out there and they buy some big boats. Like, I see them, because if they're doing like a weekend thing, they'll just pull in the parking lot with their boat hooked up, because they're going to go right from there to wherever the boat is as soon as work's done. And I'll see these boats, and like some of them have 2 engines in them and stuff, and like, how do you afford that, dude? That's gotta cost a fortune. He's like, yeah, that's a $70,000 boat. How can you do that? Oh, you can go 25 years on a boat. It's like, at what interest rate? I mean, how much? Some of them were, who was it? Who's the people who make the RVs? Like the Winnebagos, I guess.
Yeah.
Those type things. I know people that have those like tour bus looking ones. And I was like, how do you afford that? It's like, oh, you can go 20 years on it because it's a recreational vehicle. And one of those companies got so desperate, they were doing 0%. It's like, just use their money for 20 years, but you're still paying $400 a month for something you're using 4 times a year. And when you buy a school bus sized RV, you're filling that up school bus fuel usage. Like, whoa. I've seen those guys pull into Sam's Club and use both pumps on both sides. It's like $280 for, and that's like, it's how far will it go on that? About 400 miles. Like, what? You gotta let it run at night. Let the AC work. It's like, oh no.
Is there enough money around there floating that there's private plane guys? Like,
there is in Ann Arbor. They're like heart surgeons and stuff.
Okay.
And, yeah, there's a lot. I don't know. Those are prop planes.
yeah.
There's a lot of twin engine prop, because the guy who did my surgery that I followed up with, because we did a video follow up, because I didn't want to go back to U of M, because it's like you got to find a place to park and walk in this maze. Well, he was going down to South Carolina to hunt something. I was like, but he'll be back on Monday. It's like, wait, it's Saturday. How's he gonna? Oh, he's flying his plane. So I asked him, like, what did you have? It's a twin engine Bombardier or something. It's like, oh, this is a $500,000 plane, but he's a surgeon, so okay. Yeah, he flew it himself. Like, you see a lot of that around Ann Arbor. You don't get into jets, though. You don't see the private jets. That's next level. Not a lot of Gulfstreams.
Because I remember there was one like Pawn Stars where like he was buying like a used plane. It was like 1970 Cessna, and it's like, oh, this is worth $300,000. Like, Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Although when they make plane parts, they build them. They're built well, but you still got to replace them.
Well, then you got to pay for a pilot sometimes.
You gotta pay for storage to store the plane and
Yeah.
do maintenance on it. Yeah, so
I don't know. Our cousin flies planes. He probably knows all about this. I don't know anything about private planes and private plane ownership.
I remember there's that one show. Oh shit, I can't remember what it's called. But they repossessed like yachts and private airplanes and stuff like that.
Oh, like High Dollar Repo or
yeah,
something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. It was like, oh, that shit was crazy. It's like, yeah. This guy has, this this plane's worth $70 million. Guy hasn't paid a dime on it.
I've never paid. Gulfstream 5, never paid for it.
It was just like, you know, that show had seasons to it. I mean, there's just millionaires out there like getting access to like purchase the stuff and then just not pay it off. Like, deal went bad, I'm not gonna pay it off, and it's not like, oh, here you go, bank. Like, they're hiding it away. Like, I'll get it back eventually, or they're just stealing it.
Yeah, they just don't care. They did. They repossessed like a new bulldozer or something once, but it was hidden like under tarps.
Yeah.
And they like sent a drone out, and it's like that's the shape of the bulldozer, and they had to get it out of there, and they were like, this guy's heavily armed too. Like, oh yeah, you're gonna drive at 4 miles an hour to get away from this guy. Your bulldozer repo.
And I always love that story that Kevin Smith told, because he had like this poetry gang in Hollywood that included Carrie Fisher and Tom Clancy. Like they'd get together, like read short stories and poems and shit. And apparently, like, Tom Clancy was a big fan of Kevin Smith, and like one day, like Kevin Smith was like talking about like you know stuff with the airport. It's like, it's crazy. Like, I gotta travel to this place. It's like, he just like lights up a cigar. You know what you need to do is get a private jet. It's like, sure, Tom Clancy, you fucking billionaire. Just get myself.
The clerk's money doesn't stretch that far.
Yeah.
It's a Gulfstream.
I mean, not saying Kevin Smith's poor or anything, but yeah, he doesn't have money for a fucking private plane.
No.
I mean, I think he's got something going on right now, like a movie or something.
Yeah, he's doing a sequel to Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, which it's it's a movie making fun of reboots, sequels, and prequels, and it's all three at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So he's like making fun of his own movies, because there's a part where like they're basically like going through Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and they have like the girl gang, but now it's like a more multicultural ethnic girl gang. And that's like the joke. So I don't know.
No, it's just something where it's like, I know he's still always kind of doing something, and
yeah, but he's always like, it's kind of like I stopped listening to a lot of stuff because he's always on the verge of making something that never gets made. But they're shooting this movie, so.
Oh.
But he hasn't really made a good movie since Red State. But I'll watch all this shit. But
yeah, because
I still haven't seen Tusk, but I don't need to rush to see that.
Yeah, it's okay. I watched it once. I own it. It's okay.
I've always found him to be like, he seems like a guy, if you ran into him, like you could talk to him. Like, he seems like a fun guy.
Oh yeah, he's just a normal
I'm not
schlubby
necessarily
guy.
a huge fan of his work, even though some of his dialogue, especially in some of his first movies, was like, oh, that's just subversive. Like, that's great. Some of his later stuff, I don't know.
Well, I think like for his later stuff, Red State was probably his like actual best movie.
Yeah.
And then like I was like pretty much a fan of all his stuff until like, I don't know, like 7 years ago, and then just dropped off. It's like, it's not worth investing in Kevin Smith anymore.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because he still has his Smodcast, doesn't he? And,
Yeah. I mean, that stuff's all around. And like, he just became a podcaster at some point after the failure of Zack and Mary Make a Pure Porno. It's like, well, I guess I'll never make $100 million at the box office.
That should be the Canada version, though. Zack and Mary Make a Pure No.
Pure No. Brought to you by Pure Noir.
Pure No. It's not just any porno.
It's a Pure No.
It's artistic.
Would you like some Swedish meatballs with your Pure No?
Pitter patter. Let's make a decision here, people.
Well, I took my son to the shooting range the other day.
I saw that.
It was nice enough out for that.
Was he shooting? Was that a 22 he was shooting?
Yes. He has. I have purchased him a. This is a Ruger Mark IV.
Okay.
The 22 caliber target pistol. So we were just doing some, instead of like this crazy stuff we were doing when we went out, we were just, because it was an indoor range, people are watching.
gonna do like not even looking at this, pulling from the hip and firing
Yeah,
with it.
I'm doing any of my indirect fire drills, and stuff, which were not wildly successful, but they, they work. Nor blowing holes in the sides of our shirt from the muzzle. Well, that didn't happen. But no, we were just doing like fundamentals because he said he wanted to do that. And I was like, okay. And so I went out and got a 22 target pistol. I was like, this is what you learn with. You don't. And we fire.
Hey, they just gave me an M16.
Yeah. I have. He doesn't like the big. Because he's fired all my big guns at some point or another, and I was like, it's just nerve wracking for a kid to like,
Oh yeah.
So this is a lot better just to.
Well, I was firing your 45. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
I didn't know it jumped that much.
Yeah. It's a big slow round.
Oh, I mean,
I haven't even fired your 44.
I'll bring that out sometime.
Well, I mean, the 45, like, I fired my dad's, and I think you brought yours when you came out.
Yeah,
right?
the Kimber.
Yeah, because I fired yours, and I like the kick of a 45. Like, yeah, it's pretty solid, it's pretty heavy, but, like, it actually shoots pretty well. Like, I never had a problem with the 45.
Well, I just thought, like, dealing with the recoil, it's like, I feel, well, it's not going that, but what it feels like that you see somebody in a video and they like have a loose grip and it just goes boom, it hits their head.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it feels like when I was firing. It's not doing that, but you kind of do like you fire it and then you have like this weird like swimming back to position kind of thing, which you don't get that with a 9mm.
No.
I haven't really been trained to shoot handguns, so that's.
I have very limited. I know the fundamentals. I have very limited, but I went out and got this 22, which is actually a really nice shooting gun. But we fired it, I would say, close to 400 times at the range, and he fired it 380 rounds. Like I just kept reloading, and he kept going. I was like, okay, do this, bend your knees. I said you don't really need to tuck your head and lean forward. There's not going to be much felt recoil. Just, and I moved it out to different ranges, and I was like, just put the center pin over the bullseye and figure out where you are, and eventually you'll just do that every time. And yeah, it worked out great because it was a 22 target pistol. It's fun, and we only spent $30 in ammunition, not $500. So,
well, because the pistol itself is actually not too bad either, because it's like $400 or $500.
It's about a $600 gun. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
I haven't priced guns for a while, but I knew it was around there last time I looked at one.
Yeah, this is the new Ruger that came out last year. It has the AR style takedown instead of because the Ruger Mark 1, Mark 2, and Mark 3, you had to like put the magazine in, put it at half cock, and then do all kinds of weird stuff to disassemble it and clean it.
Oh.
This one you just put the magazine in, empty of course, rack it back, and then press the button on the end, and it folds over like an AR and pops out, and then the bolt and everything come out, and it's real easy to take apart and clean. And
that's nice, because I kind of get tired of the Glock and the SIG doing exactly what the Mark 1 and 2 used to do, where it's like, oh, you get it in this exact position, then you jimmy that a little bit, and then it all slides apart. And like,
is that your SIG? Because mine's super easy.
It's not bad, but it's not something I would ever try and do, like if I didn't have a lot of time, because it definitely takes the right stars to align type of shit.
Wasn't that like 1911's kind of a weird takedown where you have to like pull it back a quarter of a way and pop something out?
Yeah, the 1911 it has a bushing tool for the front, and you bring it back because there's all the way locked back, and then there's quarter back, and you bring it back quarter of the way, and you lock that up, and then you put the bushing tool on the pin, and you move it, but make sure that the spring doesn't have your hand ready to grab the spring, because if not, it'll shoot the spring, and the spring across the room. And then you undo that, and then it's got the locking lug, then that pulls complete. It's kind of weird to take apart, but once you do it, it's like, oh, this is easy. This is 100 and some year old technology here.
Yeah, I remember I magically took apart a M249 Saw wrong, and like those have like super high tension springs in them.
Yeah.
And, like the sergeant was like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And like he like it's like how'd you do that? It's like, you got me. Because the operation to an open bolt machine gun is like way different. It's like to put it on safe, you have to put it on fire, and the bolt has to be to the rear. It's like, what? It's on fire, but it's safe. Like, what the fuck you talking?
Counterintuitive almost.
And so like he had to like he took the back of it off because like the stock just kind of like slides up and out. And then he put it to his chest, pulled the trigger, and like the spring went boom. Just to keep the spring in place and not fly out the back of the fucking gun.
Yeah, and those are those springs that are under such tension that they don't look like a spring because they're so tightly compressed. It's like, what is that? And then as soon as you release tension, you'll find out. Flying.
Oh yeah, because that spring in that thing's almost a foot long, but like when it's compressed.
Yeah, those are. I've only seen those in videos, but yeah, those are. Any of those open breech firing guns are just weird. You understand exactly why they do it, but because like the Uzis are like that, they just fire from an open breech.
Oh, it's fun when you reload because the way you teach you to reload it is you have your called Kevlar. It's the helmet, and that's armored.
Yeah.
And so when you put a new belt in, you look down. You don't actually look into it to see what you're doing. You feel with your hands to reload it. Because when you open that thing up, it can be hot enough that if you put new rounds in, they'll just cook off.
Oh, shit. That's scary. Okay.
And so, yeah, it's like, you let you do that. So you just do that automatically. And when we were training, that actually happened. And then nothing happened because they did what they were trained to do, and the blast just went off into their helmet, and they were cool.
Wow. It's dangerous. But yeah, that's we did some shooting, so that was fun. Enjoyed it. And when I went to clean the gun, I couldn't believe because I just bought the cheapy, like 500 round. Fun box.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought because when I had the gun apart, I was looking at the muzzle of it with my flashlight. I was like, oh, what the fuck's wrong with the barrel? It was just all lead that had just caked up on the front of it, and because it looked like metal that had folded out, but it was just a bunch of lead that had mushroomed up on because we fired it so many times. Like, oh. I'm gonna have to get the nasty cleaning jag out for that because that thing I can just see lead in that barrel.
Yeah.
They had the weird cold soap there too.
Cold soap.
I thought that was a special effect. Yeah. Now they have all kinds of rules on shooting ranges. Like when you're done shooting, you wash your hands in cold water.
Oh, okay.
You don't open your pores up and get lead poisoning. But the soap has like a Bengay vibe to it, because so when you put it on your hands, like you can feel it working immediately, like tingles. But if you put it under hot water, it doesn't work very well. But if you put it under ice cold water, everything just sloughs away, including a layer of your skin, I think. But it does. We're washing our hands in that, like, wow, this feels weird. I was like, yeah, it's doing something. It's that you don't want to be exposed to a lot of lead. But of course, it reminded me why I don't like indoor firing ranges, because there's me and Grayson and Stacy at the one lane. Me and Grayson are shooting a 22, so it's like pop, 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 and then the guys show up with like, some guy had an M1 Garand, some guy had an AR-15. They're like one lane over. It's like boom, boom. It's like, oh, you guys having fun over there? It sounds like a freaking war. It's like, oh.
Let me get the Sega shotgun out. 40 round mag.
Yeah. Get the beta drum on that. Like, that's just why I don't like indoor shooting ranges, because gets cacophonously loud, especially when you're shooting like antique guns. They're just super loud. They're cool looking.
Just spray gas everywhere.
Oh yeah. No, it wasn't a Garand. It was like a 30 caliber from that era, like those rifles.
Oh, the M1 carbine?
Yeah, it had like the straight walled round.
Yeah, it's fire at 30-30, yeah.
Yeah, and they were just...
Yeah, because the Demolition Ranch guy, he got that... It's called an Auto Mag 3, and it fires a 30-30 round, which is meant to be a rifle cartridges, but it's fired from a handgun, and it makes a giant fireball because that gas is meant to expand in the length of a carbine, not a fucking pistol. So like all this gas just escapes from the handgun.
It's like the corona of a star end of your gun. Yeah, they had one of those, but it was a carbine rifle, and that's just like, oh, okay. This is...
I learned that the GM made those during or one of the companies that made those, so you can get your General Motors M1 carbine.
Yeah, a lot of people made them. Those are terrible guns. M1 Garand is awesome to load. It's like, oh, okay, this is fun. Now get that in there, but hold this part back that's under extreme pressure, because otherwise it'll slam closed on your thumb, and it looks like something from a machine shop in the 30s. Like it's just this big bolt.
No, the M1 carbine's different. That one's just a little.
I'm talking about the Garand.
Yeah, the Garand. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know why they both have M1 designations, but
because it didn't matter. Everyone knew what it was. But yeah, so we had some fun. It's like, this is why I like outdoor range.
Do you have an outdoor range there?
Not really.
Okay.
He's old enough now I can take him to the indoor ones, but I have to supervise him the whole time.
Well, I mean, we supervised him when he was here.
Yeah, I didn't let him just juggle those.
Point
You want from behind the back.
Yeah, if anybody gives you any shit, just point it at him.
Fuck you, buddy.
Now hold it sideways. Cool.
Because so when you fire it, you want to get a wide spread because you want to get the whole group.
Yeah.
Even
Just
people
fire in a wide circular arc.
Make
Don't forget to hit the stroller.
No witnesses.
No witnesses. You don't want people to come and kill you in 30 years to avenge somebody's death.
No, there was there was a bunch of weird fucking headlines this fucking week between fucking like Disney banning smoking finally, but also large strollers because people, I don't know why the fuck you need to ban large.
In combination, they saw Who Framed Roger Rabbit. They know what they're doing.
But then in Kentucky finally bans bestiality.
What? That
Yeah.
was like the last bastion. It was the last bastion of freedom in this country.
Nope, go to Hawaii, North Carolina, or Washington D.C. I think, and also
Nah,
one
open
other state.
sea, man. International waters. That's where you get your bestiality on.
Have a goat brothel on a decommissioned aircraft.
We called it. We call this Noah's fucking ark. So you can fuck whatever animal you want on this ark. No, there was between that and looked up all the Florida Man shit from this week, and it was pretty interesting as far as just usual Florida Man shit. And fucking yeah, because between somebody like beating the shit out of somebody with a hot sauce packet, which I don't know how the fuck you do that.
That's determination, and they must be crippled beforehand.
And then fucking just somebody, I think, oh yeah, it was somebody ate like the last drumstick and got shot over it or something like that. Just random, usual Florida Man bullshit. Oh yeah, a guy.
Florida acting like it's the apocalypse before the apocalypse.
A guy like broke into
apocalypse.
a younger guy broke into his neighbor's house and then sexually assaulted her and tried to rape her, and then came up with an agreement that he would do yard work for her to make up for it, and shook her hand and then left, and then she called the cops.
No way, we shook on it.
Oh no, you're fucking me.
Oh, a guy
But
that
they'll rape me in prison.
and then a guy that faked getting robbed and assaulted to get out of work. Like,
Well, that's just Fight Club.
just stupid shit like that, and obviously other stupid shit connected to Cheeto Man and his 45th presidency of the United States.
What's the latest threat from him now? The entire Mexican border, they're just gonna close it. That's the latest threat, which is like some people pointed out, timidly, like that's our third largest trading partner. So you're gonna stop a third of the economy. Because you can't get your wall. Okay.
Well, just do the North Korea plan, Cobalt Blue. Just nuke the line, nuke the border.
Well, they already had pictures from one news outlet today about, or like a couple hundred people under a bridge in the Mexico border detained, like Scarface style, with a fence and a porta potty and a tent, like underneath a bridge. Like,
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a mess. I'm not mitigating the fact that it's a mess, but these wildly self-destructive, non-productive things, I just don't see. I mean, I understand a lot of that's just circus to feed the mob, his mob of people. Fine, whatever. Yeah, you have to appeal to the lowest common denominator, whatever. But when you're seriously talking about, like, as the president of the United States, like, we're going to completely seal the border. There, no one is, it's illegal to come in and out. And it's like, you don't realize what a huge, immediate economic devastation that would bring. You're just going to bandy that threat around and then threaten Mexico. Like, they're going to deal with this. It's like, they don't care, dude.
Well, that's how he gives off the air to his base that he's a strong leader. Like, I'm gonna do irrational things that'll harm everyone.
Oh, I know exactly. That's what I said. But the problem is he's starting to actually do these things in some cases.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, that's what I appreciated about Newt Gingrich when he was Speaker of the House, because he really struck that balance between keeping the lunatics in line and making sure the rich got everything. Trump has never been able to balance that teeter-totter. He's always just gone a little too far. And, you know, we're going to make threats and it's like, I don't think this is good. But again, I'm year 2 into my political agnosticism, so like, I hate them all at this point. It's like, whatever. Fuck off. I mean, it does matter, but it's like, does it? When I see what the other side wants to do, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'm just okay being a political. I'm about to become a political atheist and quit voting.
But then they win.
Yeah, I was gonna say, then they really win.
And then when they win, we all lose.
I was gonna say, is it either they win or I lose and they win? It's like I don't win either way. So.
Oh,
but
yeah.
No, I don't want this guy to. I don't want to talk about politics. Fuck it. It's a fucking mess.
All right.
2 years ago.
Let's talk about F1, the most extravagant sport. Well, I guess not the most extravagant, but the most extravagant motorsport.
Yeah, easily.
What would be the most extravagant sport otherwise, I guess?
I don't know, like polo or some shit, where you get like horses and things together.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I didn't know if you meant just on the sheer spectacle of how much it cost, or
F1 is very European. Let's put it that way.
Well, it started in Britain, but yeah, it's more of an international brand. But I mean, they race all over the place, but it's like a lot bigger in other countries than it is here. Here, it's barely anything. But...
all I know is I respect F1 because they don't drive around in circles all day.
Well, they just drive around in bigger, more
elaborate
circles.
Shapes.
Yeah.
They
drive around a bendy straw.
That's what I respect about them.
Yeah, because the new F1 season started, and like I probably will never watch an F1 race, but I have a podcast I listen to, and it's the stuff they talk about is fascinating. And there is a documentary series on Netflix called Drive to Survive that is very good, and they cover last season. Oddly enough, they cover all the teams that aren't Mercedes or Ferrari because they are the two teams that spend $500 million every year on their teams.
I can't say that those both aren't huge car makers that have contributed a lot to the racing industry.
Well, I don't know where Ferrari's getting their money because they're not selling enough Ferraris to bank that. So who owns
Does
Ferrari?
Ferrari still make tractors and shit like that? Or?
No, that was Lamborghini. Ferrari is kind of they're sort of like Disney. They license a lot of stuff, and they do a lot of stuff. They do a lot of R&D in the background for other race car companies, and there's a lot of money comes from that.
Okay.
And in Europe, old money, you can ride on Mystique too.
Okay.
You can get a lot of bank credit just to keep those stands full.
Well, I know like we're Mercedes.
Benz is
Well, they're like
like the New York Yankees of F1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, at a car manufacturer in general, they're like the second. Are they the largest, or it's like it's Toyota and Mercedes are the largest, right?
Volkswagen and Toyota.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, Mercedes is still big.
I'm surprised Volkswagen hasn't come down after all that diesel shit.
Well, no, because they still because other countries don't care.
Well,
well, kind of.
You know about Volkswagen and Ford, right?
What's that?
What's going on there? Volkswagen made, after all that diesel shit, they made this pledge: we will not make IC motors past 2020. Everything will be battery electric or whatever. So what they've done is partnered with Ford. So Volkswagen said, we will not make, now pay attention to this, internal combustion engines for our cars after 2020. However, Ford will make our internal combustion engines. So we have become the exclusive internal combustion engine supplier for Volkswagen. So that way they kept their pledge.
It's the same way I keep my pledge when I tell my wife I won't fuck prostitutes. I'll just have sex with them. it's totally...
I'll pay them. I'm not gonna fuck them.
It's kind of the same thing, because what Volkswagen wants to do is make a truck with us, with Ford.
Yeah.
And they want to market it in Germany and America. I forget what it's going to be called, like the Tortog, or, you know, they're going to change it for here because that sounds like a sex act. But they want to make an F-150 with the Volkswagen name on it, and SUVs with the Volkswagen name on it, but they're going to have Ford drivelines, and they might even be made in Ford plants.
Well, I know that Europe is modernizing more, but like it's not like France and Spain and like more of the coastal cities that are all so narrow you can only get small compact cars in there for the most part. But at the same time, is Germany really that big of a market for private trucks and private SUVs, I guess?
For making them?
Well, see, a lot of that stuff they want to make here in our plants, and a lot of it's going to be sold here. I don't know what they're doing. The problem with Europe is it's kind of a dry hole for money, because everything's so fucking expensive there, and their economies are so weird right now that there's not like this burgeoning middle class that wants to consume a lot of stuff like that. So I don't know. There are a lot of rich people there, but I don't know what.
I mean, mostly they sell to other countries. Like their primary incomes from other countries.
Yeah, Volkswagen's big in Germany. I mean, they have there's a big German market for German. The Germans drive probably percentage-wise as much as we do. You get into like France and some of those other countries, yeah, it's sort of this, because the German roads look exactly like ours. And as a matter of fact, they're better. they look like ours, but they're like 10 feet into the ground. They don't wash away every spring like the roads in Michigan do. But they don't have the asphalt mafia.
But I mean, like in America, it's like, well, America makes cars, and then we sell that to Mexico. Well, actually, Canada makes cars too, but they just make American cars.
Yeah.
And so does Mexico. But like Europe, they're like them and Toyota are making cars for the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, Europe's very export dependent, and but with the drop in the virtual zero demand for passenger cars anymore in North America, which is the largest market in the world for cars, has affected everyone's bottom line, and everyone is scrambling because GM and Ford are willing to say, we give up on cars. We haven't made money since the last auto collapse. We're not going to count on bailouts and loans for the next one, so we're going to pre-position ourselves to make things that make money. And if there's suddenly this huge demand for passenger cars, we can pivot quickly. We have a whole corral of names like Galaxy, Taurus, we can go right back to, or we can start importing them from China, which is what they really want to do. And so when gas prices go up again and say, oh, we have lots of cars, just don't ask where they're made, because they're all coming from China, so they can finally put the last nail in guys like me, our coffin. So, you know.
No, here's what you do. We're going to sell it to millennials. Passenger houses.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be living out of their car. Nobody owns a house except for the super rich.
Yep.
You can't afford rent anymore.
And every time you buy a car, it comes to your own Uber account, so you can make money as well.
Yeah, you live in your
job,
car
your
and
house,
Uber.
and your transportation.
Yeah, I want to see the car with like you get in and you like unzip it and it's got like a toilet seat on it. Get in it while you're driving. You don't even have to get up. We get you moving again with the new Ford. Drive as you go.
We're on our way to the Wally chair.
Oh yeah. Well, see, and that's the other weird thing about the market for cars. And there's all kinds of grim news now, especially around me because the auto contracts are this year. So we've got to just exploit the worst possible scenarios to really try to scare the shit out of everyone because it's fun. But yeah, it's like people that are 25 and under, they can't afford cars. They don't make any money. So you're not going to sell to them. I mean, okay, if you want to know where America is right now in terms of like big ticket items that you don't need but you want, look at the Harley Davidson right now. They are dying. If Harley Davidson continues to operate as they are operating right now, they will literally vaporize in 5 years. They will somebody will buy the name and it'll be broke up into a bunch of little things and you'll still have Harley Davidsons, but you won't have that Milwaukee dynasty of $30,000-$40,000 electric glide motorcycles rolling off the line every 10 minutes. No one's going to be able to buy them. As the baby boomers die, Harley Davidson goes with them. That's the first brand to go because that's a total surplus bullshit thing you don't need. You don't need a $35,000 motorcycle. I understand why you want one because I had several, but that's going to go because the millennials are not buying $35,000 motorcycles. And then the next thing that's going to go is going to be the cars. That's why everyone's lining up around electric, self-driving bullshit cars because they're just going to flood the market with those because no one can afford a car anymore, but they can afford a $5 ride to wherever, you know, and of course it won't be a human being driving it. We're going to fuck all those people and we're going to fuck all the truck drivers. And so you're going to have like 150 million unemployed people once you fuck everyone out of these driving jobs. But yeah, so supposedly, but that's why this is unsustainable. Remember, the Soviet Union dissolved in 1990 because their ideas were unsustainable. And there's a guy named Sakharov. He was their main father of the Soviet hydrogen bomb. He wrote a wonderful, wonderful essay called Live Not by Lies. Everyone needs to read that before this next election. Because this whole thing in America, this capitalist thing that we're doing right now, I'm not saying capitalism all over or in general, we are at the fucking end game. And if anyone can't see that, it's because they just don't want to see it. You would not believe the shit that's going on just all over the place. It's like, yeah, this is not sustainable. You know, we're trying to get rid of healthcare. We're trying to get rid of all this stuff because no one wants to pay for anything. Everything costs a fortune. No one's making any money. Guess what happens? Where does that lead? You don't need to go to the Harvard Economics School to figure out where that's going. So, yeah, you can see. But, yeah, read up on Harley Davidson, everyone who's watching and listening or whatever. See where they're at. That's where everything's going to be in 10 years or less if we don't change course here. And I mean really change course in effective ways. Realign shit. Not like, oh, we're just going to go with trees and green energy and all. It's like, okay, well, that'll just accelerate the demise. But you need to get money back in people's hands.
But for more
capitalism doesn't work.
For more superfluous racing, back to F1.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know where that led, how that came about.
Oh, yeah, because like I said, F1 is extravagant.
Oh, European, yeah.
There's Mercedes and Ferrari, and then it related all.
Because they're not in the documentary. Because why would they? They don't have to be.
Yeah.
Isn't like Audi and a bunch of other European car makers in F1 as well, or is it okay?
There's Mercedes. They make engines for a couple of different teams. Which, by the way, I learned how much those engines cost.
How much?
$10 million a unit.
That's not bad.
So you got that. You got Ferrari. So they make engines for a couple different teams as well. You have Renault. I think they make. So they did make the engines for Red Bull, but Red Bull ditched them last year. That was like a big drama in the show. Because like the Renault engines, like they're powerful enough to win races because both their drivers won races with that engine. But the problem was it wasn't reliable enough to finish all the races.
Oh.
So that's like the thing. Like I heard somebody say like the Ferrari, like their engine is like, it's not that Mercedes stuff is like technically more powerful or anything. It's just that their stuff is more reliable than all the other teams.
Oh, okay. Does Honda still do F1, or did they get out?
They don't have a team, but they do make engines.
Okay.
And their engines have been terrible since they started, but they got a third place finish in the first race this season, so I guess they're good. And that's who Red Bull switched over to, is the Honda engines.
Okay.
You go with the worst engine.
Well, they've figured it out, I guess.
Oh.
That's like I've heard before. Like Honda's an engine company; they're not really a car company because like they make engines for everything, for your lawnmower, for jet skis, whatever. They make engines. That's what they do.
They're actually really good at it too. They make good stuff. Hate to admit that.
And who else? Yeah, I think that's all the engine manufacturers.
So Lola and Cosworth don't exist anymore. Or are they consumed by the other companies?
Who was that?
Cosworth was Ford's F1.
Oh, right. Because they made
And-
that rally car, right? The Cosworth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Lola was Peugeot's.
Okay.
But anyway, what you were talking about.
Well, there's like an Alfa Romero team, but they don't make their own engine. They use like Honda engines or something.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of B teams. So like Red Bull, like the Red Bull team, Red Bull bought the Jaguar team. So that's how they got into F1. And then they have a B team called Toro Rosso that's run by an Italian, like it's run through an Italian company, but it's like their B team. So like they'll get young drivers, they'll put them on Toro Rosso. They're not expected to win, they're expected to get experience.
Okay.
And then all the
Farm.
yeah, and so like and then all the real money's dumped into Red Bull. But Red Bull, they're not spending $500 million on their team, but they're spending, probably $200 to $300 million.
And then also the rest of it's on Red Bull.
Huh?
The rest of it's on Red Bull, like the physical Red Bull,
Oh, okay.
Oh, you were making a joke.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was getting too much into thought because I was like about to explain like Red Bull, they got into F1 and they're kind of a joke for a couple of years and then they won like 5 years in a row. And they're not spending $500 million on shit.
It seems like a lot of money to spend on that.
Well, you got to think about like the technology. Well, see, a lot of things. Think with like they're talking. So there's the Haas team. Haas is the only American team. Like they're new, and that's Haas CNC machines. That's who they are. They're successful in like NASCAR. Like they have championship NASCAR teams. So they're in F1, and like in the documentary they talk about like they have $140 million budget. And then like the interview was asking him, was like, so how many people do you have on staff? And he's like, oh, we have 89 people because it's a French guy that's running the team. He's the team principal, but it basically means like the coach.
Using soccer terms.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like, 89 people. They're like, Mercedes employs 1,200 people, right? He's like, yeah, they have money.
I feel like he's honest.
And so like like Haas, like people are doing a lot of roles over there because they got to cover all these bases. Also, like Mercedes is spending more money on parts because there's sometimes like where people just literally don't have parts to repair their car, and that's why their car's fucked up for the race.
Wow.
And like Mercedes, like no problem, like we'll just make another part.
We got the money.
Yeah. Yeah, so like Haas is kind of a fun I guess everyone's an underdog, and because if you're not Mercedes or Ferrari, you're an underdog, and that's where the most interesting stuff happens in the race is like that like 6th to 10th position. That's where like pretty much all the fun is because all the other guys are like a minute ahead of the rest of the fucking pack. Unless it rains. When it rains, everybody equals out.
Oh, that's what it becomes.
Because I hear like some of the best races are the Canadian Grand Prix because like it seems to always rain at the Canadian Grand Prix.
What about those Canada Gooses though? Are they
They're shitting all over the track. And then what's the other team? And then McLaren, they're like kind of an old school team where like they used to have a lot of championship and they still throw a lot of money on it, but they don't win.
No.
Like Haas is above them.
Yeah, I was saying, like, some people consider the McLaren F1 like one of the best like actual racing cars or whatever. I know it's not in the F1 or
Yeah, but like they don't even make an engine anymore or the car. Well, that makes it. I was the funny thing about Haas is like F1 is so desperate to get an American team that as a team you're supposed to make, because like you can buy engines, you can buy chassis and transmissions and all that stuff, but your team has to make a percentage of the car itself. Like you have to actually manufacture something for the car. But they've allowed Haas to basically just pick and choose whatever they want. So like we'll get a Ferrari engine, we'll get the Mercedes transmission, and they just buy everything. They don't make anything themselves.
Just off the shelf race team, huh?
Pretty much.
That's incredible.
Because America is pretty much the largest market they haven't really tapped into.
Yeah. And do they run F1 races in America?
Yeah, they have they have an American Grand Prix that runs in Austin, Texas.
Oh, Texas. Okay.
And then you have the Mexico Grand Prix, and you have the Brazilian Grand Prix, and the Canadian Grand Prix. So they're around here, but it's only one race in America. But they only do one race in any country, really. Except I'm not sure.
They're not constantly running like every weekend.
They do. They have a race in Baku, Bahrain, and in Azerbaijan. They go a lot of weird places.
I always love the sound of those engines.
Well, they're lesser now because they're hybrid engines. They don't have the roar like they used to.
Oh, yeah, they used to scream.
But they want to get back to that, so I think they're gonna have louder engines. The next, because that's kind of what changes the luck of a team is like because it's called the FIA, and like they kind of determine the rules of how you build a car. Because basically there's no spending limit on what you can put in your car, and it's not NASCAR. It's not like everyone has to be legal, but there are rules that you have to build by. But you can do your own thing, and if you build the best car, then like hey, you're good. Because I remember there was like they made a fan car one year, and it beat the shit out of everybody. Because what it did is that it cooled the air underneath the car with a fan, and so the heat like pushed down on the car. And so like it just like you could take a corner at like high speed because the car was not going to slide off the track at all. It was just sucked it to the fucking ground. And so they banned the fan cars, so you couldn't make a fan car. There was a lot of weird stuff in the 70s. They had like a 6-wheel car, the fan car, a bunch of weird shit. So it's a bit more standardized now, but there's still like room for how you design your car.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so there's that Netflix, and then there's the Williams one about the Williams team. That's kind of the last independent team that there is, and like they're the. It's so sad because they're the. I think they got 8 points last year.
Out of how many points available?
Oh, thousands.
Okay.
So how the point system works is you have the Drivers' Cup and you have the Constructors' Cup. So drivers, they have their own point tallies, and then the teams have their own tallies because each team has 2 drivers. So one guy got a 7 point, and the other guy got a 1 point. And I think the one race where the guy got a 7 point is because like half the people like got knocked out of a wreck.
Oh, okay.
So you have the top 10 gets points.
Yeah.
So the first place gets 25, and it goes all the way down to 10th place gets 1 point. And if you're out of that, you don't get any points.
How many racers are there every time? About 20 or so, or?
There's 10 teams with 2 drivers, so it's 20 cars out there.
I kind of figure it's probably around 20, but at the same time.
It used to be larger, but it's expensive to field an F1 team.
Yeah.
At $10 million an engine, no, that's fucking jump change. Like, I don't know, more people aren't in this.
They
still shoot fire out the back when they shift gears?
I don't think so, but what they do have is they have skid plates. So they have, intentionally they have plates on the bottom of the car will hit parts of the track when it kind of bottoms out, and it'll just shoot sparks everywhere. And that's
Oh.
done intentionally to make it look more exciting.
Oh, okay. They just put high carbon steel skid plates so it throws a lot of sparks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'll see them just driving, it's like nothing will happen, and all of a sudden fireworks. It's like, what the fuck just happened?
I remember when they used to have like the V12 engines, and they'd shift gears and just shoot this cone of fire.
Yeah.
Out. I don't think they use the V12s anymore.
No, because they have the hybrid engines right now. Because the next time they're gonna switch to something else. Because that's usually like teams dominate when they have really like severe like tech switches. So
Yeah.
the last one came like a few years ago when they switched over to the hybrid engines. So that's when Red Bull won 5 years in a row, and then they did this tech switch, and then Mercedes they won like, because like Lewis Hamilton, black guy from Britain, the only black driver in Formula One. He's won 4 of the last 5 championships.
Oh, okay.
And the one year he didn't win it, his teammate won it.
Oh, okay. Whoever dominates the tech takes the crown.
Yeah, pretty much.
So next year, F1 pedal racing.
I remember I watched because we were talking about it once. I watched one of those Formula E races.
Yeah.
Those are weird because there's no sound except for
Yeah.
tire wheeling and stuff like that. And then when it's time to switch, it's like, oh, his battery's low. It's just you have to jump out of one car and jump into another.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's different. Okay.
Well, this year they actually improved the technology and I think got bigger batteries that the car will actually last the whole race.
Oh, okay.
So they've improved that now.
My question is, which car is sponsored by Energizer? Like, which one by
I'm not
Duracell?
sure. There's a lot of Chinese. There's a lot of weird companies that are like. It was like one sponsored by Nissan, but there's a lot of Chinese companies. There's one that's like Tech Cheetah. They won the last race.
Okay.
It's like Formula E is really cool, is because their shit is like, because they don't necessarily have like the best drivers, the cream of the crop there. The championship is always really close. So for the last 6 races, 6 different drivers have won the race from 6 different teams.
Okay.
That is fucking unheard of.
Yeah, that's a wide field there.
I mean that pretty much means it's anyone's game. And like the top 10 people, like I don't even know how many races are left, but like anybody can win the championship right now. Which like in F1, like the dude like Lewis Hamilton will probably fucking win the championship like with 3 races left to go, so he can literally just crash his car in the last 3 races and win the championship.
Oh, so by points.
Yeah.
Keep the bag. Okay.
He's got it. He's got it. Don't worry.
So yeah, the Formula E is really close. It's always a close race. What else is it about? Because there's something funny else. Oh yeah, they have. I heard this news story about there's Moto E now. So now Moto GT, they're gonna have their electric series with the
Motorcycles?
electric
Okay.
motorcycles.
That's going to be different.
But unfortunately, they had to cancel the first race because the charging station caught fire and destroyed every motorcycle.
Okay. It's going to be hard to race in that. Let's have a foot race.
Full gear, helmet on. Let's go.
Get out there and run, boys.
I think they'll just cancel more of the first race, like most of the season, just because
Well, I don't know.
the capital take it. I mean, I know the motorcycles aren't going to be as costly as the actual full F1, like full body car, but it's still not cheap.
Well, because I heard this on the podcast, and the guy said like, "Well, none of the bikes are plugged in," and the other guy was like, "That makes it worse."
It does.
The charging station just catches on fire.
Yeah, at least give us a reason.
Either that, or it's just either there's some shady shit's going on. It's like, well, we need this insurance payout quick.
Yeah, we overspent, or it's the oil companies. Dun, dun, dun.
Well, and they're working on drone racing.
Well, that'll be exciting.
Well,
This car is just getting blown apart. No one died.
yeah, because like the thing is like everyone team is gonna build their own AI to compete with these other AI.
It's going to be more hacking than programming.
And because you don't have to build a car around a person, it's going to be like wildly different cars.
Oh yeah, just be like a box with a bunch of aerodynamic shapes on it.
Yeah.
And it can pull like 4G corners because the guy won't pass out.
Oh yeah, the other fun thing about Formula E is they have a fan boost.
Okay.
So in this is also in F1. There's a thing called the KERS system, which is like the kinetic something retention system. Basically, when you brake the car, it'll use the energy and it'll store it in a battery, and you can use it as like a turbo boost. And then there's also what is it? There's also something like when you're on a straightaway, you can use this where like on a straightaway, you don't necessarily want all the downforce, and so the wing will actually open up to allow air to go through, so you can go as fast as you can in a straight line. So I can't remember what that's called, but anyways, so those you can't use those all the time. It's almost like a video game. It's like when it's available, you can use it. So they have a thing called fan boost, and basically whoever gets the most votes on Twitter gets this boost during the race where they can use like this turbo thing like at any time because the fans voted for them.
Oh, so it's interactive at this point.
Yeah. And making it more like a video game.
Yeah. Direct audience participation.
So yeah.
Formula One. Check it out.
Yeah, or at least check out the Netflix. The Drive to Survive is a pretty neat documentary.
Yeah, it sounds about it.
And the driver field this year is super fucking young. It's like they basically just I think there's like 3 20-year-olds.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's like these like guys are like 3 years older than Grayson. Like they basically would have gone to high school with Grayson.
Yeah, if you 20 years old, you put me in a car like that, I'd be dead in like 5 minutes.
Well, it's weird. They're showing like their workout routines, and a lot of it's like it's not necessarily a lot of it's just like cut weight, so it's a lot of cardio and shit. But a lot of things to do is just purely hand-eye coordination.
Okay.
It's like stand in front of this thing with a bunch of tennis balls on it and a bunch of lights blink, and you got to touch the tennis ball.
Weird.
And they do a lot of neck exercises. Like they'll just have like this fucking strapped to this guy's head, and it's like hanging over a bench, and it's like trying to lift with his neck and stuff. I was like, so that does something. I don't know. I mean, I guess
Or prevents them from getting whiplash.
probably.
It builds up whatever. Those
Well,
muscles-
they have the Halo device, which is supposed to help with.
the Hans thing.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
but they have. Yeah, there was it was like they had because Formula One used to be crazy. Like, it used to be the most dangerous like job in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was like, well, you have like 30 people are racing, and like 3 people are gonna die this year.
Oh.
I think it was in the mid 90s when they introduced like the computer controlled ABS and computer controlled leveling suspension. They lost 7 top people in a year. Like they had to go back to the drawing board. I remember hearing about that at the time.
Well, they got rid of that because they don't have because now it's part of because that's one of the things in F1. It's like, is it the car or is it the driver, and they have to ride that balance.
Yeah.
It's like, so they took out ABS and stuff like that to like, it's like, no, we want to make sure the driver is driving the car and not just like they're in an awesome car and they just win automatically.
Yeah. A bunch of people got killed because of that too, though.
But they didn't have a death for almost 20 years. There's only recently a guy died, and it was basically I don't want to say a freak accident, but it was like a highly improbable accident.
Oh, okay.
So it started, I think it was in China, and it started raining. So a guy took a corner, skidded off, and like hit the wall. But it was like had a really long runoff. So it took a while for him to get to the wall.
Mm.
And so driver's fine. He gets out of the car. They so they have this little crane thing. It looks like a caterpillar, and then like it has a little crane on the front end of it. It goes to pick up the car. Next driver comes around, skids out in the exact same way, hits that caterpillar.
Oh.
And because it's kind of like up high, he basically just banged his head off the fucking construction equipment.
Yeah.
Which, if the wall was just there, he would have been fine, but he hit that thing.
Yeah.
and he still lived. Like he was in a, I think they put him in a medically induced coma to keep the swelling down, and I think he was still alive for like almost like 8 months, and then eventually he died.
Mm.
But that was like the first death in like 20 years.
Yeah. Yep, there was a rash of them in the 90s. There was a Brazilian driver that was real popular. He died one of those races.
Oh, was that Eric Senna? Because I have a documentary about him. He's the,
I think so.
because that's the only one I know that's really famous Brazilian driver. Because he died. He was racing for Williams at the time.
Okay.
Because there's another documentary called Williams, which is about the Williams team.
Oh.
Which is kind of interesting because that guy, he's just a dude. He doesn't come from money, but he married into money.
It's like you gotta have some money. You can't just go around begging for parts before races.
Well, he kind of did that. There's fun stuff in the documentary where it's like, oh, he committed crimes, but it's fun. Like apparently, because he's like with all around these rich dudes, like, and he like worked on cars. Like they wanted him to build them race cars, and like they'd give him his old car. It's like, oh, I want you to sell that and now get me a new car. And he'd take that old car, basically like re-electroplate it and like take everything apart and make it look new, and he got like a VIN number out of the factory somehow, and like sold them their old car back to them as a new car, and do that like to a guy like 3 times. It's like, oh, that's a crime.
It's fraud.
But it's funny. It's, you know.
As long as it's done for humorous, and no one cares what you do to rich people as long as you get it.
Yeah. But yeah, then it ends up being sad and everything because he gets paralyzed, and like their family dynamic is so fucking broken and weird.
It's like British hillbillies.
No, but it's like there's just like it's like the documentary starts out. Frank Williams is kind of like this fun, eccentric guy who's just like obsessed with racing, but then that's the rest of his fucking life. It's like, hey, why isn't Dad here for Christmas? It's like, oh, you want him here because he just be wanting to go out there and do racing shit.
Yeah. He's one of those Fino, a father in name only.
I mean, you know, he's around occasionally, and like the kids are still involved with everything because Claire Williams, that's his daughter, like she's the deputy team principal of Williams.
Yeah.
You know, they still bother to do that stuff, but it's like they don't have the greatest relationship with their father. And like, you know, he's there. He actually like, I don't, because his wife died of cancer and she was kind of the glue holding everything together.
Yeah.
He doesn't even go back to that house anymore. He lives at the factory.
Oh, okay.
Where they make the car. And he has like somebody that helps him out because he's a quadriplegic, but he has movement in his shoulders.
Okay.
So it kind of looks like he can like do things. It's like they put like pads on his hands and he can like wheel himself around, but he can't really.
He's just flinging his shoulders.
Yes. Yeah.
He's like a locomotive, just like moves his shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long has he been a quadriplegic though?
Since the 90s.
Oh.
Huh.
Yeah, because he's like in his 80s now, I think, or something like that.
Well, anyway.
And the funnest joke from that document, it's a BBC documentary, so it's well done. But they're talking about the groupies for the drivers, and this guy's talking. It's like, we used to call them screwdrivers because they did. Yeah.
Oh.
You just always call them blow drivers.
That's their job. Want to take a break for model talk?
Sure.
Favorite part of the podcast. I got this model this week. I don't know how well this is coming through.
Well,
kind of.
I can see it.
Yeah. There you go.
This is the TACOM's version of the 1959 Soviet tank project called Object 279, which is in the Soviet vernacular. That's how they name things. And this was a quad tank, cross-country, super heavyweight battle tank designed in the 50s and into the 60s. This was designed to be nuclear. This was designed to survive a nuclear blast.